On April 17, 2019, a city bus in Milwaukee pulled up to its usual stop at 6:02 p.m. The doors opened, passengers stepped inside, the driver gave his usual nod. Everything felt normal. But then, the bus didn't move. The engine was running, the passengers were ready, but the driver kept his hands still on the wheel. People looked around, confused. Some whispered, some grew impatient. "Why aren't we leaving?" someone muttered under their breath. At the front of the bus sat a man named Mr. Carter. For decades, he had been known as the steady hand on Route 87. Always on time, never causing a fuss. But that night, he broke his own rule. He refused to leave. And the reason why would change the way every person on that bus thought about him forever. The bus sat there with its doors closed, and the seconds stretched longer than usual. A woman near the back tapped her phone, shaking her head. A teenager sighed loudly, pulling out his earbuds. An older man glanced at his watch as if to say, "Come on, we've got places to be." Nobody understood why the driver wasn't moving. Up front, Mr. Carter's eyes kept shifting toward the door. He wasn't angry, he wasn't distracted, he was waiting. His grip on the wheel never changed, steady but firm, as if he had already decided something. The air inside the bus grew heavy with impatience. A man in a suit finally spoke up, his voice sharp. "Are we going or not?" Carter didn't snap back, didn't argue. He simply said in a calm voice, "We're not leaving yet." No explanation. Just that. Murmurs ran through the rows. Some passengers exchanged glances, others leaned forward, curious but frustrated. It was clear this wasn't about traffic, or the schedule, or some mechanical problem. Carter was holding that bus in place for a reason, but he wasn't ready to share it. Every minute that passed only deepened the mystery. Passengers thought about being late, about missed dinners, about children waiting at home. Yet Carter's focus never wavered. He was waiting for someone, or something, and until then, the bus wasn't moving an inch. The minutes ticked past, and just when the frustration inside the bus reached its breaking point, the reason stepped into view. From the far end of the sidewalk, a figure appeared. A young man, barely out of his teens, walking slowly, almost dragging his feet. His shoulders slumped under the weight of a worn-out backpack, and his clothes looked like they hadn't been washed in days. His eyes were downcast, tired, and it was clear from his pace that he wasn't rushing to catch anything. He was simply surviving another day. Carter spotted him immediately. His hand tapped the wheel lightly, like a small signal to himself. That was who he had been waiting for. To everyone else, this was just a late passenger, someone they wouldn't have noticed if not for the delay. But to Carter, this wasn't just another rider. This was the reason he hadn't turned the key. The boy's shoes scuffed against the pavement as he made his way toward the bus. A couple of passengers leaned closer to the window, watching with puzzled expressions. The businessman shook his head and muttered something under his breath. A woman near the aisle whispered, "We waited for him?" Nobody understood why Carter would hold up an entire busload of people for this one teenager. As the boy climbed the steps, his breathing uneven, he avoided eye contact with everyone. Carter gave him a small nod, a look that carried more weight than words. The boy hesitated for a second, then shuffled to a seat in the back, clutching his backpack as if it was the only thing keeping him together. Silence filled the bus. No one dared to ask what was really going on, but everyone felt the tension shift. The driver hadn't just been waiting for a passenger, he had been waiting for him. And the reason why was something none of them could have guessed. As the boy settled into the back seat, the bus remained unnervingly quiet. The usual chatter, the shuffle of bags, even the sound of phones tapping, all of it was replaced by a silence so heavy that every small movement seemed amplified. Carter kept his eyes forward, hands resting on the wheel, but the way he sat told a story. He wasn't just driving, he was watching, protecting. Passengers exchanged confused glances. Why had this one boy mattered so much? He hadn't looked like anyone special, just a kid weighed down by life. Still, there was something about the way Carter had waited, the way his gaze lingered in the mirror, as if checking to make sure the boy was safe. It wasn't the kind of attention a bus driver usually gave a rider. It was deeper, personal. A woman in the front row leaned toward the aisle, whispering to her neighbor, "Do you think they know each other?" The neighbor only shrugged, but their eyes stayed fixed on the rearview mirror, trying to piece together the unspoken connection. The boy never looked up, his chin tucked against his chest. He pulled the straps of his backpack tighter and stared at the floor, as though bracing himself against judgment he expected but hadn't yet received. Carter caught his reflection in the mirror, his jaw tightening slightly, then softening again, like a man trying to keep steady for someone who needed it. No one on that bus knew the history between them, but they could sense it. This wasn't chance, this was something unfinished. A driver refusing to leave, a boy walking as though the world had given up on him, and a moment that tied them together in silence. And for the first time, some of the passengers began to wonder, not just why Carter had waited, but what would have happened if he hadn't. The hum of the bus engine filled the silence, but it couldn't drown out the weight in the air. Carter's eyes flicked once more to the rearview mirror, locking on the boy. He wasn't just a passenger to him, there was a story sitting in that seat, one Carter couldn't ignore. Passengers grew restless. A man near the middle spoke up, his voice edged with irritation. "Driver, what's the hold-up earlier? Why didn't you go?" Carter didn't answer right away. His grip tightened around the wheel, and his silence only deepened the curiosity that had spread through the bus. Finally, with a steady breath, he spoke, his voice carrying a calm firmness. "Sometimes leaving on time isn't the most important thing." The boy shifted in his seat, pulling his knees closer, as if the attention made him smaller. A woman from the back pressed, "You mean to tell us you stopped this whole bus just for him?" Her words carried judgment, but Carter didn't flinch. Instead, he turned slightly, his blue uniform catching the dim interior light, and his voice softened in a way that made the bus lean in. "That kid, he reminded me of someone I once knew." The passengers exchanged quick glances. The boy froze, his eyes darting to the floor as though he wanted to disappear. Carter didn't reveal everything, not yet, but his words cracked open a window none of them had expected. This wasn't about rules or schedules anymore. It was about something personal, something he had carried for years. For the first time, the strangers on that bus realized they weren't just witnessing a delay. They were sitting inside a moment tied to pain, memory, and a reason that reached far beyond a simple ride home. The bus had grown silent, the kind of silence where even the hum of the engine felt heavy. Carter sat behind the wheel, his knuckles still firm against it, his eyes fixed not on the road but on a point somewhere far in his memory. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, yet carried a weight that pulled everyone closer. "Years ago," he began, "I was on this very route, same kind of night. I had a bus full of people, and one young man, no older than a teenager, sprinted toward us. He was late, real late. I looked in the mirror, saw the schedule ticking in my head, and I pressed down on the gas. I left him standing there in the dark." Carter paused, swallowing hard as though the memory itself was pressing against his chest. That boy never made it home. A block away, he was hit by a car. His mother came to me the next morning at the depot, crying, asking why I couldn't wait just a few seconds. The words hung in the air, and the passengers shifted uncomfortably, their earlier frustration melting into quiet disbelief. Carter's gaze finally moved to the rearview mirror where the young passenger sat, clutching his backpack tight, eyes wide with a mix of fear and understanding. "Ever since that night, I promised myself I would never, never leave anyone behind. Not for a schedule, not for a rule, not for anything." His voice cracked slightly, but he steadied it again, determined. "I couldn't save that boy, but tonight, I wasn't going to make the same mistake." The bus was still, yet the weight of his words carried through every seat, through every passenger, as if they too were pulled into the moment he had just relived. Each person realized the refusal wasn't stubbornness, it was redemption. And in that moment, the reason that had shocked them all was finally laid bare. For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of the bus filled the silence, a soft reminder that life was still moving forward even as every passenger sat frozen in Carter's truth. Then, slowly, something shifted. A man in the front, who had been the loudest to complain earlier, lowered his head, shame flickering across his face. A woman near the middle leaned forward, her voice softer now, almost breaking as she said, "I had no idea." Others murmured in agreement, the tension that had filled the air earlier dissolving into a quiet respect. All eyes turned toward Carter, not with frustration this time, but with something different, understanding. Even the young passenger who had been the cause of it all looked down at his shoes, his grip on his backpack loosening, as if the story had landed deep inside him. Carter didn't ask for forgiveness, and he didn't expect applause. He simply put the bus back in gear and began to drive, his hands steady, his jaw firm, his promise honored. The city lights blurred past the windows, each stop now carrying a different weight, as if everyone on board had become part of a moment larger than themselves. By the time the bus finally reached the last station that night, the passengers stepped off more quietly than they had stepped on. A few nodded toward Carter, a silent gesture of respect. One older man paused at the door, his voice low, "Thank you for waiting. Thank you for not forgetting." Carter gave only a small nod, but in his eyes was the quiet relief of a man who had kept his word. The doors closed, the bus hissed, and as it pulled away into the night, the story of one driver's choice lingered in the hearts of everyone who had been there. An ordinary night transformed into something unforgettable, all because one man chose not to leave anyone behind. And now, I'll leave you with this. What would you have done in Carter's place? Would you have waited, knowing others might turn against you? Share your thoughts in the comments, because stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest decisions carry the greatest weight. If this story moved you, don't just scroll past. Subscribe to the Empathy Room for more real stories that carry a heartbeat of humanity.